I'm back. Someone actually called me, so my filming stopped. And I realised, I was like, hang on a minute, I can't have a full gusset going all the way across if here is a fold. What am I thinking? So I've changed it again. So my 10 centimetres going up, and it will be sewn to this side piece, and then this will come round, and there is no line there is no gusset, it would just be a fold. That's much better. So if you look carefully, you can see my chalk lines. So this one here, as I said before, is my side panels going down my legs. This is my 10 centimetres, which I've drawn off, and that is going to be now just the lower part around my ankles to give me the right circumference all the way around my leg. And then this bit here is the waistline coming outwards for extra space in my stride, and then here is a fold which I'm leaving. Now this bit is free, and I'm not going to chalk that out yet because I want to sew all of this together first before I decide how big my pockets are going to be, what shape they're going to be, where they're going to sit. So I want to try it on before I decide on the pockets. I also had a thought about maybe having a kind of grown on pocket that comes in this seam here, so that would actually stick out there and grow on both sides. But when I kind of felt on my body of where that would come, it would just create a lot of extra fabric layers and bulk over your stomach where you don't want it, so I'm scrapping that idea. I think my pockets might well be at the back. I've checked my measurements are correct. Now I'm going for it and I'm cutting out. Okay, most of the cutting finished, and you can see how my design is now translated into fabric. And when you wear it, obviously this central piece will gather up. A bit more like this. And my gusset, I think, is going to work. So if you open that up, you can sew the edge along here, and then sew both sides for the leg. It will work, trust me. I just cut off my salvedges afterwards, and quite often I keep them because they're a bit firmer, and there's some lovely colours coming in here, and sometimes it can be used as almost like a trimming for an edge of a different project, or even the same project, so I'm keeping those. Fabric's all ready, overlocker plugged in. So I've just snipped these two threads off, and I'm going to exchange them for the green one here and the grey one there because I'm running out on this spool. So I've tied up my thread, so I'm going to pull it through. So a bit of a mixture, two white and two different colours, but they pulled through really easily because they didn't have to come through the holes of the needle. Time to sew. Okay, so here's my tester. This one I thought was a little bit too close together, too many stitches, so I moved it to a bit more than 3 instead of 2-ish, and I'm happy with that. So this is how I made the lower leg piece. So this is the ankle going up the leg, and I literally put right sides together. I'm not doing any stretching or pulling. They're both equally being stitched together at the same time. So I'm nearly there on one seam, and I'm just going to run off the edge once I've finished to the end, then I run off the end. As you can see down here, I'm cutting off very little, so even though I'm coming off at what looks like an angle, it's still, the fabric's still pretty much a straight line. So first little tester, slim fit, but I like the way it looks, very nice. So I'm coming up to the crotch area, and this part is my gusset, and this is coming down the leg. So I'm just going to make sure that meets and make this sit flat, and then keep on going all the way around to the other side. And what do we have here in the sewing room? A little added extra. So here's an update. So here's my gusset of the lower leg going in, and this is where we had the fabric on the fold. You can see that's worked pretty well. And you can see it from that angle, more how it would look when it's actually on the body. And then the seams going all the way up to the top, and I stupidly didn't account for the gusset width in this strip, so this has come up higher than the middle section, so I'm just going to trim that off and maybe make my waistband slightly wider than I thought I was going to make it. But that's okay, trial and error, never made these before. That's why a toile is totally and utterly necessary. But I'll still be able to wear them and they'll still be comfortable, so I'm happy. So I don't have a camera crew, but giving you a little twirl, a little bit of wrinkling around the ankle. I could trim that off, but I quite like that look. And then the fullness is definitely there. And now I'm going to have to cut out a waistband. I quite like them. They're certainly extremely comfortable. And I won't be able to get my leg warmers underneath here because they're rather fitted. But do you know what? Because of all that fluff on the inside, I won't need to wear leg warmers. Okay, I'm going for 10 centimetres with my waistband width. How excited. I just got rung by the Pôle emploi and they've told me that I have a place as in a kind of haute couturier place in Toulouse, and I'm going to do a stage for a week. So I know I'm 35 and I shouldn't be doing work experience, but I've just moved to France and that's the way they do it here. So maybe I'm going to be working in a fashion house. Very nice indeed. So here's my waistband. It's going to come together in the centre front. So I've overlocked the edge and then finally it will be tucked in and sewn down. And I think I'm going to have a little hole a bit away from the top edge where my ribbon or whatever I choose is going to go through, and then this top piece will have a little wave to it because my waist is narrower than this, and I think that'd be nicer than going right out the top. Time to bring the washing in, the sun's gone down. So this next bit I couldn't do on the overlocker. I had to get out my lovely Elna, and I didn't have many different coloured threads, so I've got this green in the bobbin, and then the closest thing I had was this kind of medium coloured blue, which will just have to do. And then on my dials I made it a slight zigzag stitch and a reasonably long length because it will stretch a tiny bit. So these are my overlocked edges, which you can see, and then I just sewed up more than halfway, left a gap, reverse stitched, and then went to the end. So when the bottom edge of your waistband meets up, you come to below the top and there's the hole for your drawstring to come through. If you've ever done a drawstring before, the most annoying thing is not being able to get your safety pin past the seam allowances. So what I do is I fix it down. I've done it with a top stitch, but if you don't want to see that detailing, then you can do it just a little bit by hand near where your hole is, and then it'll be invisible. So most front waists scoop down here quite a bit, but because I'm going right to my waist, it's very level, and this is not a tight fitting garment. So keeping that very straight along the top edge is fine. So I changed my stitch length to 4 and upped my zigzagginess to nearly 2 so that I could bring the 2 layers together and just stitch very close to the edge to hold them in place, because I'm going to attempt to overlock all 3 layers together at once, which is a bit risky normally. So that was just to make sure that everything stays in place and I don't have any holes and layers escaping from where I'm going to be overlocking. So now that I know where all this is sitting nice and flat and where the hole is, I'm going to create now a channel by top stitching this down. So top edge done, and now I'm just going to work out by the width of this elastic where the bottom line to make the channel needs to go. Okay, so not totally parallel, but when it's all kind of bunched up slightly around my waist, you won't notice a thing. The other thing I did is when I was sewing it, I stretched this fabric and then sewed, because this piece has to go over my bum and my hips, and I did it purposefully stretched because I didn't want it too baggy around my waist, so I didn't want my threads to snap, so stretching before sewing is a good tip.